All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kelly, and I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Sino, and I'm joined with my colleague Alenka, who is a Senior Project Manager. Today, we are excited to talk about the new and improved tables and wall plates offered for you in your protocols. On a side note, today's webinar is being recorded and will be sent to you afterwards. So for today's agenda, there you go. We will be discussing the purpose behind this feature enhancement, the why that drove us for this improvement. We'll dive into some use cases built into SideNote to showcase the changes and enhancements in action. We're going to discuss some good practices to implement in your workflows when utilizing our tables and wall plates. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A with discussion. So feel free to drop in your questions, your concerns, even feedback in either the chat box or the Q&A section, and then we're going to address them at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to pass things over to Alenka.
Okay, so yeah, today I want to start first with a bit of introduction. So I would like to start and spend a few minutes first explaining which SideNote tables and wall plates got improved actually. So in SideNote, you can create tables either inside rich text fields on steps and results, and you can imagine those tables as they are in Word files, for example, that have formatting capabilities but are not intended really for doing calculations. You can also insert or create an Excel file directly in SideNote. Those are basically the same thing as you would use Excel elsewhere, and you can even use SideNote Edit to open those files. And then there are two types of tables that you can embed directly into steps or results, and those are accessed via insert content buttons in SideNote, and they are either table content blocks or wall plate content blocks. That's how we call them. And these two are the ones that we improved and that we will be referring to in today's webinar and discussing what changed and what are the use cases you can use them for. And a few more words in the aspect of what have changed since the previous version of our tables in SideNote. So generally, the bigger things that are new are the formatting capabilities. So there are much more font styles, colors, content alignment is now available. You can set borderline styles. You can also merge cells, lock cells for editing, column resize and reorder. You can hide certain columns if you want to. What is most important for these tables is that we introduced more Excel-like formulas. Currently, there are 484 supported formulas. And we also enabled cross-table calculations within the same page. So as long as the tables are within the same page in SideNote, you can cross-reference between them and use those tables for calculations. We also introduced smart annotations to tables and wall plates, which were not supported before, and also a few other smaller features that we might mention during the use cases today. And all this we did with the goal that the wall plates and tables would be enhanced, will have enhanced capabilities, and they would better serve the purpose why they are anyways in SideNote, so you can use it for your data management better. We also wanted to reduce the need to have tables in attached files, which limit data accessibility and visibility directly within steps and results. And of course, also with this, we reduce the need of additional clicks to reach the data that is stored in the files that are attached to steps. Okay, this is for a short introduction, and I would now jump directly to the first use case, because I think with use cases, it would be the most easy to showcase what are the new features of these tables. I will first start with one more maybe simple use case. And this one is a reagent preparation table that I prepared a bit in advance, and I will showcase a few features on this use case. So with this feature, so with new tables, you can now change the column names directly. So let me show this. So you would right click on a column name, column header, and click rename this column. And you can give it any kind of name that you want. I'll just move all of these header names here to the header, so the column header names, and rename them so that I can actually remove this column afterwards. So let's do it. And for the last one, okay. And this is now, all my column headers are now renamed, and I can remove this first column because I don't need it anymore. And there is a pretty simple shortcut. I can either right click and delete selected row, or I can select the whole row and press on my keyboard Control or CMD if you're an Apple user, and minus, and it will get removed right away. What you can also already see here is that I have some smart annotations in my table, and I would like to add them a few more for my follow-up for the remaining columns. And you can also access adding smart annotations with right-click on the cell. So for this case, I right-clicked on this NaOH, so sodium hydroxide column, cell, not column, and I'll add and replace this with smart annotation. So you can do it as you would for other things in Synode. And I'll save, and it will got included. And let's do that for the last one too. And this one is okay. You can also open and access item cards from here. And what I didn't yet mention, you maybe notice that there are a few cells that are looking a bit different here, and those are locked cells. And for this that I was just editing, I don't have them locked yet, but you can lock them on right click and select lock cells. This doesn't prevent other users to by themselves unlock them, but it still can indicate for your coworkers that this is intended to be locked and maybe work as a template. And this reagent recipe, I also prepared, let's say, in mind to use it as a template for calculation of my reagent recipe. And therefore it has now all the columns locked except for this one that I marked in green. And also I added a bit of a note to type here the value of the volume that I need for the reagent. And I can replace this. And let's say I need 1,250 mils of new reagent that I need to prepare. And because I entered formulas in all of these columns that take into account the original recipe and the volume that I need, the recalculation happens instantly. And this is pretty handy for some things where you want to make sure that you calculate things each time correctly. What I would also like to mention is that you can download basically and save on your local machine the table from Synode now, which was not available before. I'll do that now. And also one thing that will be coming pretty soon, so this is next week on Wednesday, is importing your data to the table in Synode from your Excel files. I'll go down here and import this same table that I exported from the table here back to Synode. So note that this feature is not yet available, so it's coming next Wednesday on 26th. But I think this one is worth mentioning because it's very handy in case of data that you might have stored otherwise elsewhere or in attached files, because it saves you much more time and it keeps the formatting and formulas, and you don't need to copy paste and reapply the formatting again. What it doesn't save in this case is column locking, so you would need to lock them again, but this is maybe a small task compared to re-entering all the data from scratch again. Okay, so this was for the first use case, maybe a more simple one. And the next one I want to showcase is a more of a well plate focused use case. In this case, I have let's say I have an ELISA task in Synode and I need to prepare my pipetting plan. So I need to figure out where in my well plate I want to put certain samples to. I already drafted a bit of my well plate plan, but I need to fill it out and complete it. I have already placed where my blanks will be, where my control samples would be. So for the negative, on the limit sample, weak, positive, and positive. And typically, I want to color code this. So let's start with color coding my blanks, and I will maybe keep them white. I want to mark my negative controls with, let's say it's light red. On the limit is, let's say it will be yellow. Weak positive will be light green, and positive, let's put it at green. So it's clearly visible. And then after my blanks and controls, I will put my samples. So I prepared a bit already some of my samples. I will have samples in triplicates and also have them in different dilutions. So here I started already with my first sample and have a few of the dilutions set up already. And then I'll add the last one. So for the well plates, since you typically combine different information or you want to point out how many of each volume you combine in one well, we would advise that you use that you enter your content in more lines using Alt or Option key plus enter in the cell content. I'll showcase. So let's say I write sample and then I press Alt and enter, and I will enter here my sample name, and this will be again the same as previous one, and then Alt enter again, and I'll enter my dilution factor here. So it's 1 against 150. And that's it. And because I want to have it the same as the rest of my sample, I will add smart annotation and replace my sample name with a smart annotated sample so that I have it linked, and remove the typed sample name that I used to add it before, and save. So this link will get then replaced with my sample name, and I can, as mentioned before, access my sample data and item card by clicking it. And let's say I want to color these samples in a specific color. I'll give it blue. And as I said earlier, I want to have them in triplicate. So I will just select all of them. And then if I pick and grab and drag the bottom right corner, as you would do in Excel, for example, and extend it over the other cells, I actually extend and copy paste or duplicate my content across multiple cells. And it takes together also the smart annotations and the formatting that I applied, which is pretty handy. It saves a bit of time. And here I have my set up for the second sample. Let's give it a different color in this case. Let's put it to violet and do the same. And it does the same. So basically that's it. And I can even, if I want to mark in my well plate, so I will have just that many samples, I can mark these. I'll merge the cell and mark this as my standards. And then I'll mark this again, merge the cells, and let's give them the name of samples. And this gives me an indication, okay, these first few are my samples, standards, and then these second 6 are the samples. Yes, and right, one more thing I would want to point out regarding the well plates, which was not available before. So currently, there are a few limitations to the tables for well plates because they have inverted header and row numbering to mimic the same layout as you would have in the physical well plate that you're using. And if you have a specific type of well plate or maybe a tube strip that is not actually a well plate, but you would want to plan out your experiment, how you are pipetting your samples in a tube strips, let's say, you can now create a custom layout for the well plate and define the dimensions, number of row and number of columns that you need. This was not available before, but it became available now with the new updated tables. We introduced this one too. Yes, and maybe one more mention, because the well plates have a fixed layout, it's not possible to introduce new rows or new columns in well plates because they have predefined structure. If you need a different setup or maybe additional rows or columns for adding some nodes, we advise you to create a well plate via this custom well plate creating and create a layout that you need with this helper. Okay, let's maybe move to the third example that I want to showcase today, which is maybe a bit more, yeah, a different one again that will showcase a few other examples of features. So I prepared already some data for, let's say I was measuring my enzyme activity with a DNS method that I used to prepare my reagent before. And I already did my measurements for the standard curve. I calculated the standard curve values, averages, and also draw the standard curve. And now I put in my enzyme activity measurements for my sample. I have them here, and I want to, let's say I want to make this table also look a bit nicer. I can, again, let's merge the cell, and this is my raw data. I'll bold and change the background so it's visible and more clear. And I will mark this row again in a different color, just so that it showcases nicer where the data is and what is the remaining part. I'll also add, in this case, a border, so the data is nicely divided from my information that I have about it. And also let's put it here. And then I have a second part of my table that I will calculate the blank corrected values. And for this 3 cells, I will again merge. So it's clear that these are then the blank corrected things. And those are the final results actually that I will use. And let's put it to green. Yes, so for the blank corrected samples, I need to consider my background that I measured from the standard curve. So I already prepared one formula here, but I'll show it again so you can see. So I want to remove from the measurement that I did, I want to subtract the blank corrected value. So the background basically. And I can go, what I did, so I typed in the equal sign, I selected the cell from where I wanted to subtract the background and went to my table above where I selected the wrong one. So where my average of the background is, and I want to subtract this value from the value from this cell. And since I want this formula to keep the same cell for the subtraction, I'll add the dollar signs too. It's the same way as you would do in Excel. And this already calculates the blank corrected measurement. And I will extend this formula to the the rest of the cells. And I'll do the same for the second repeat, basically. I could actually do that also like this. I'm adding steps. Okay, and I already had my average formula predefined here, but generally you could enter the average, type in the average, or maybe let's delete one, and I'll showcase this. So I would type equals, type average, bracket, and then select what I want to average and press enter, and the average will get calculated. Yes, so we went through the merging, we went through the coloring. Oh, right, one more thing that I wanted to showcase. So we are showing also the sheet name, which basically comes in handy when you want to keep track of the formulas where you cross-reference different tables. I didn't rename my table before, so it still says sheet 12469, but I can actually do this. So I want to know that these are my standard curve measurements. I can right-click on this sheet name and say rename worksheet, and I'll give it a name. So this is standard curve. Okay, let's put space here and save. So now is this table is named standard curve, and it will also be nicely represented in my cross table formula, so that I also later, when I return to my data, I can double click and know that this formula uses data from this table and also from the table that is named, in my case, standard curve. So you don't need to do this, but it might come in handy for the cross-table references. You can still keep the sheet name as it is if you want to. Okay, we went through the borders, and I think we went through the important parts of this use case. It's not a complex one, but it can give you like some ideas how you can approach calculations with these new tables in Synode. Okay, and now I will give the word back to Kelli for the last use case before we move over to the rest of the presentation.
All right, thank you, Alenka. For today's final example, I want to showcase some more housekeeping when it comes to our tables. So at the bottom of my protocol, I'm doing some grain quality testing. I have a results table. For starters, my columns can become too narrow when you're creating a header. So as Alenka is showing here, you can put your mouse in between either the columns, and when you click and drag, it can extend the column's width or decrease it depending on your needs. If you need additional columns or rows, you can also do so by either right-clicking on a row or column and clicking insert before or after, so you can get real specific on where you want to add those additional columns or rows. Or if you wanted to, you could go to the bottom of the table, and to add an additional row, you could just hit enter. And the same goes for the result for the columns. If you go to the far right, and as long as you're in the far right cell, you could hit tab, and it's going to add additional cells that way. So you can either right click, or you can just use some shortcuts on the keyboard. Now, as you can see, our table can get lost, or some of the rows can get lost when you have to scroll up and down. You can resize the table to view more or less of the rows if needed. And all you're going to do is put your mouse at the bottom right corner, and you're going to drag it up and down to create the size in which you want that table to appear. Now, something we haven't really talked about is when it comes to formulas. So I know Alenka has shown a lot of different types of formulas to be done in our tables. But one thing that we haven't mentioned yet is that when you do create formulas, you're going to have to type out the entire formula. So unlike Excel, where it would kind of guess what your formula is, you will have to, for example, here, write average. If we're going to do the average, which I know we already showcased this before, but we're going to write average, have that parentheses, choose our cells, and then end that with that parentheses, so that way we can get the average of what we're looking for our grain quality average. Now, if you're unsure of what formulas to use, you can always right-click a cell, and there's going to be an option that says supported formulas. If you click on that, it's going to bring you to our knowledge base article. And that there actually has a downloadable that will have all of our formulas on there, including examples on how the formula can be used. So you don't have to have the guesswork or just trial and error. We have it all written out for you that you can kind of save, keep that in a nice little pocket there to pull out if ever needed. Now, I believe this covers all of our major improvements with our side note tables and well plates. And before we get to your questions, we just like to kind of go over some good practices on when it comes to using our tables. So just like in your lab, when you are performing actions, you tend to have good practices that you follow to ensure that your work is being done properly and efficiently. The same thing goes for sign out. You should always have some SOPs, some good practices that your team is following. And when it comes to tables, we want to make sure that you set up, if you set up your tables in your protocol templates, this will result in you capturing all of your necessary data, so making sure that everyone knows that what information needs to be included when you are kind of analyzing. It also will save you time when creating because you already have the created formulas, you won't have to create them from scratch each time you're in your protocol. Include this in your SOP of use, kind of how the tables are going to be used, how they're going to be created, who's going to be filling them out on your team. Really kind of outline to keep the guesswork out of it. And on a side note of that, if you don't have an SOP of use for sign note, well, we highly recommend that you do create one. Like I said, it takes the guesswork out of how you're going to be utilizing sign note, and it keeps everybody on the team on the same page. When creating, include legends and or instructions with your tables to ensure that all the users, all your colleagues understand how they are reading the table, especially if you're creating a report or you're sharing it with outside users. It's going to come in handy. Lastly, like Alenka showed in, I think, one of her earlier use cases, lock cells when you don't want your team to easily change the value in the table. Having formulas locked will reduce the chance of having those mistakes made or having something simple accidentally happen. Just go in there and lock that. And then if they need to unlock it, it takes that one additional step to go in and unlock it. So it's going to reduce those mistakes happening. All right. So with that being said, we can kind of jump over to our Q&A portion. And I know we have some questions kind of filing in. So we're just going to kind of start from the top here, and I'll read our first question. When importing into the new table, the column titles did not carry over from the exported file. So I think that's they're talking about when you showcase what's going to be coming next week. I don't know if you want to pull that up, Alenka.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Let me jump back. So it was the imported one. Yeah, that is correct. I would imagine that I will double check that afterwards, because I can admit that I actually didn't notice that before. So I think this is because the top row probably was not exported properly. And we will double check on that and see if we can actually fix it by the next week when we update this. And since we're on this topic, I actually forgot to mention in the beginning when I did my introduction. So as you see, we will be going forward, we will be probably introducing some new or improve the existing features of the tables throughout the year. So you can expect that probably some of these smaller things or smaller parts that are not yet working ideally will be gradually improved. Yeah, but for this one, we will double check before the next week's release.
Okay. So our next question we have here is, will you also be able to import plate layout templates next week?
Mhm. Okay, yeah. So actually, this one will not be yet supported next week. For now, we will add import only to the tables. And for the well plates, we actually postponed it a bit and we will monitor the feedback and the need for this feature. So it's really good that you pointed this out, and we will add this to our suggestions board and introduce it in the next phases of table improvements and well plate improvements.
Okay, so this one's a long one, so I'm going to read it. Just bear with me here. How do we manually extend the length and width of the table? In our usage of the new tables, they default to the thin width, which then requires scrolling to see all the cells in the table. Additionally, when printing protocols, the tables will also revert to the thinner format, causing the tables, which should be about a quarter of the page in length, to print as 2 pages in length. So let's break this down a little bit here. You want to manually extend the length and width of the table. So I guess I have some questions that go along with this. Are you extending the length of the columns like I showed in my use case with the yeah, you
I
can
can
show
actually
here.
show this
Yeah.
also here. So
Are you extending your columns there? And then if doing so, I know sometimes for me, I will have to just refresh to let the table kind of catch up with me. And then typically when you extend it down, it will stay to about the full depth, if that's the word I want to use, if not just one row less. If that's not happening in your case, please let us know so that way we can kind of look at that a little bit further.
Yeah, maybe to add to this, depends maybe a bit also on the size of the table. So maybe I have here, or we showcased today, only small ones. So if you're using maybe larger ones, there are multiple columns or rows, maybe come back with us with your use case just so that we double check on that. As I said, there might be some cases where the behavior is not yet ideal, and we are happy to look into your use case and see what we can do to improve it.
Yeah, and then you said about when printing the protocols from the table, it reverts to the thinner format. So my other question would be, are you printing, for example, directly from this protocol or this task? So in like the top right corner where it says print, is that how you're printing and that it's resulting into the thinner? I guess we can kind of try it out here a little bit too if you click on it and see what the print
Let's see.
format looks like. Print preview.
Yeah, as said, probably this one is more of an ideal use case because we have small tables. So
Yeah.
that could be the issue that they are explaining.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can follow up
Yeah,
with
I
you because
think
I
the
know
same.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
So I'll follow up with you because I know you are one of my groups. So we can talk a little bit further about what's happening with your tables and what is the ideal use case, or what's the ideal way these tables should be looking and working. All right. So I'm going to just have it say that we've finished answering this question just for webinar purposes. But like I said, I'm going to reach back out to you guys. Okay. Our next question we have is, can you round numbers in the cell to, for example, 3 decimals like you do in Excel? I don't know if Alenka, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, I can take over. That is actually also one of the things that we didn't yet include into the upcoming releases for the tables, but we are considering this for the future. So we do think of introducing an additional option where you could set the number of decimals that you want to see. So as mentioned for the 2 before, we will add this to the list of feedbacks that we received and include it into the future updates.
All right. So then moving on, I feel like we're rapid firing going through these questions. But regarding the formulas, you mentioned that they are very similar to Excel formulas. Do you have a list of formulas which are available in SideNote? Or we can just try the formulas that we normally use in Excel. So a lot of them are very similar to Excel, for example, like the average. But like we mentioned, if you just right click in an Excel, in an cell, you have an option here for supported formulas, which will bring you to that document. It is an Excel document, so once you download it, if you click to edit it, you won't edit and change the file itself, but it'll allow you to filter down and search for the formulas that you are looking for particularly, specifically. So we hope that that helps. If you find that the file that we've created is not helpful, also let us know so that way we can kind of improve it for ease and use. All right. Okay. So someone said they started using recently and they are still exploring it, but so far they mostly added some PDF files to the results. And when they wish to view it, it's a bit blurry on one page at a time. Is there a plan to update the PDF viewer embedded in the near term, such as continuing scrolling is an option, and regardless of the magnification, it is not blurry? So not quite on the tables, but Alenka, I don't, if you want to kind of answer about what in the future, if this is something that you guys have thought about considering.
Yeah, I will actually double check with my team where in the plans are the files currently. I can only say that maybe in the really short term time, we don't have any plans for the updates. What maybe I can suggest in this case, though it is a bit of a workaround, depends, I don't know how you are trying to use it or open it. It's maybe partially helpful or not. You can download SideNote Edit also from SideNote, which is a dedicated application you can access via the add-ons page in SideNote. You can find it in settings. So I'll just maybe open the bar. So you can open the settings and add-ons, and there in the settings, in the add-ons, you will find the SideNote Edit app. And with the Edit app, you can actually open any kind of file directly from SideNote with your desktop editor. So in this case, you could open it with Adobe Reader or something like that, and it will bring it back to you as a, let's say, original file and the quality of the original file. And this is pretty handy also in cases when you have an editable file that you want to edit in your local machine on your computer, and SideNote, for example, doesn't have a direct integration, but it will, when you open and edit it and save, it will sync back to SideNote and update directly here, so you don't need to re-upload it. So this is what is currently already available, but for the initial question, I will get back. We will get back to you once I cycle back this question to my team and see what are the plans for the future, basically, about this.
Right. So another question, kind of similar to Excel, but can you freeze a top row or the first column in a table?
I can answer this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, currently this is not supported yet, but we will note this down as a feedback and we can look into it if this is something that we could support in the tables. And if you can share your use case and why, that would be also pretty helpful. Is this the reason because you have a large table, or is it some other things why you would want to have this feature? That would be very helpful for us at the product team to understand the reasons behind this feature in order to know why we are interested in introducing it basically for you.
Yeah, if you want to share your use case, you can either do so by reaching out to your customer success manager or reaching out to our team at premiumsupport@sidenote.net. So either way you want to go about sharing that with us, both work. All right. Okay, so someone asked, I'm going to read the whole thing just so we don't make sure you don't miss anything, but I would like to ask if this update applies also to the already existing tables, which we already have in the protocols. Because in our team, we are facing some problems, mainly during the generation of reports. In our experiments, we are using bigger tables containing merged cells. And when we generate a report containing this table, it does not look good. Can you expect this should be already fixed? Thank you. So yeah, like you want to take that?
Yeah, I can
Start
take that
talking.
because I think I know which customer is this, because I worked with them on the report in the previous year. So yeah, for the tables that you have inserted in steps as tables, they all are updated with this new release, so with this new feature. What I would want to add maybe is that we are still trying to work and improve certain aspects of the reports that are not yet ideal. So also we managed to support one portion of the formatting that you can create in current new tables and well plates to maintain when you create the reports, but there is a portion of it that we are still working on and that is not yet ideally behaving. So what is supported is merged cells already and some parts of formatting, but we have a few of issues, technical limitations basically, that we need to overcome with a few additional things like cell background and border style colors. So those are two specific ones that I can remember currently from the top of my head that are not transferred well to the .6 reports. Generally, in the PDF reports, currently those things work a bit better than .6. So we are still working on that, and hopefully we will improve that moving forward through this year over the next months. So yeah, as I said, a few are already working okay, and a few are still to be improved. So unfortunately, we are not at 100% yet, but working towards bringing it closer to it.
Okay. And then someone asked if there's a list of keyboard shortcuts. I can answer this one. I believe in one of our knowledge base articles, what we called it, I think it's top of my head, I think it was called something like what can you do with side note tables or something around side note tables. There is a, I think we include majority of the shortcuts in there, but I'll have to double check to make sure that all of the shortcuts are listed in this this article. I think if you just search what can I do with side note
Maybe this
tables?
one.
Yeah, that one there.
This one.
And then, like I said, I think we have several shortcuts listed, but I don't know. I double check if all of the shortcuts are there. So
Here
if
there are.
not, there you go. There's some. I think that is probably up, and some of the images got lost there, but that would be where we have our shortcuts there. So I can send that article over to you guys then too after the webinar.
I will link it to the answer. I don't know if it
Awesome.
went through or not, but yeah. I hope you can reach it through my answer in the question and answer Q&A box. But otherwise, yeah, Kelli will share it afterwards.
Yes. All right. So I know we went through a lot of questions. I wanted to make sure that there weren't any other questions that anybody had. And we can give you guys some time to type things out as well. Because I know sometimes when you try to type, when you have something on your mind, trying to type it really fast, you end up making all the mistakes when you're trying to do it quickly. And if not, if you do have any questions then that come up or any feedback that you were unable to share today, you can reach out to us. Like I said, either to your CSM specifically, or even at premium support at sidenote.net. And one of our team members would be happy to help you with that question or the feedback that you have. And we'll make sure we relay it to the product team if needed. But on, I guess, this note, We'd like to thank you guys all for joining us today. As a reminder, you will receive today's recording for your convenience, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And we'd like to thank you from all of us at Sino.
Thank you. Bye.